Captain Elena Vasquez stared at the swirling purple nebula through the viewport of the exploration vessel Defiance. The Kepler 442 system lay beyond that cosmic storm, a place where 17 different species had sent their bravest explorers over the past 3 centuries. None had ever returned. The bridge hummed with nervous energy as her crew ran final system checks. Commander Zhang Wei, her second-in-command, approached with a datapad clutched in his weathered hands. "Captain, I've reviewed the historical records again. The Zephyrians sent their most advanced scout ship in 2087. The Crystalline Collective followed, with the entire research fleet in 2401. Even the mighty Saurian Empire lost their flagship Eternal Glory in 2445. Elena nodded grimly. Each species that had attempted to cross into Kepler 442 possessed technology that surpassed humanity's in various ways. The Zephyrians could phase through solid matter. The Crystallines manipulated energy like children played with clay. The Saurians had conquered half the known galaxy with their plasma weaponry. Yet something beyond that nebula had claimed them all. "What makes us think we can succeed where they failed?" asked Dr. Sarah Chen, the ship's xenobiologist, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena turned from the viewport, her dark eyes reflecting the purple glow. "Because we're human. We don't have their advantages, but we have something they don't understand. We survive when we shouldn't. We adapt when adaptation seems impossible. We fight when fighting appears hopeless." The ship's AI, designated Arthur, chimed in with its synthetic voice. "Captain, long-range sensors detect massive gravitational anomalies beyond the nebula. Energy readings are off the charts, but the patterns don't match any known technology in our databases." Lieutenant Rodriguez at the navigation station called out, "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from inside the Kepler system." The bridge fell silent. No signals had ever emerged from beyond the nebula. Elena straightened her uniform jacket. "Put it through." Static filled the speakers, then a voice emerged, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "Turn back, humans of Earth. This place is not meant for the living." We tried to warn the others, but they wouldn't listen. Pride brought them here. Pride destroyed them. Elena exchanged glances with her crew. "Open a channel," she ordered. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth vessel Defiance. Identify yourself." The response came after a long pause. I was Commander Thix of the Zephyrian exploration ship Whisperwind. We arrived here 87 years ago. The others came later. The Crystallines, the Saurians, the Altarians, the Vegan Confederacy, the Metron Hive, and so many more. We're all still here, Captain. All of us." Dr. Chen gripped her workstation. "That's impossible. The Zephyrian lifespan is only 60 years maximum. Death has a different meaning in this place." Thix's voice crackled through the static. "The entity that dwells here doesn't destroy us. It preserves us. It studies us. It learns from us. And when it's done learning, it moves us to its collection." Commander Zhang stepped forward. "Collection of what?" "Failures," came the haunting reply. "Every species that entered this system came here believing they were the apex of evolution, the pinnacle of their respective developments. We all thought we had reached the ultimate level of advancement. The entity showed us how wrong we were." Elena felt a chill run down her spine, but her voice remained steady. "What kind of entity are we dealing with?" "Ancient beyond measure." "It was old when our galaxies were young. It collects civilizations that have reached what they believe is their peak, then shows them the infinite distance they still have to travel. Most species break under that revelation. They lose the will to grow, to strive, to become more than they are." The captain looked around at her crew. Fear was evident on their faces, but she also saw something else. Determination. The same stubborn human refusal to back down that had carried their species from the caves of Earth to the stars themselves. "Why are you warning us?" Elena asked. "Because you might be different. Your species is young. Barely 300 years since first contact with galactic civilization. Most species that come here have been spacefaring for millennia. They've grown comfortable with their power, convinced of their superiority. But humans, you still remember what it means to struggle?" Elena made her decision. "We're proceeding into the system." "Captain, I must advise against this course of action," Arthur interjected. "The probability of survival based on historical data is effectively 0. Arthur, how many impossible things has humanity accomplished in the last century alone?" Elena asked with a slight smile. The AI paused for a moment, processing. "By strict definition, 47 major achievements that were deemed impossible by contemporary scientific consensus. Exactly. Set course for the nebula. All stations prepare for entry. As the Defiance approached the swirling purple barrier, Elena couldn't shake Thix's words, an entity that collected civilizations at their peak, showing them their inadequacy. But humanity had never believed it had reached its peak. They were always reaching for something higher, something more. Perhaps that would make all the difference. The ship entered the nebula, and reality began to shift around them. Colors that had no names painted impossible geometries across the viewport. Space itself seemed to bend and twist as if they were traveling through the dreams of a mad god. Gravitational forces are fluctuating wildly, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez. It's like space-time is folding in on itself. Elena gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered. Whatever lay beyond this cosmic storm had destroyed the greatest civilizations in known space. But humans had always specialized in surviving the unsurvivable. They were about to discover if that reputation would hold true in the depths of the Kepler 442 system, where something ancient and terrible waited to judge whether they deserved to continue their journey among the stars. The Defiance emerged from the nebula into a star system that defied every law of physics Elena had ever learned. 3 suns orbited each other in a perfect triangle, their light casting rainbow shadows across space itself. Planets hung motionless in impossible positions, some sharing the same orbital path without colliding, others floating freely in the void without any gravitational anchor. "Captain," Dr. Chen whispered, her scientific mind struggling to process what her instruments were telling her. "The readings don't make sense. These celestial bodies should have torn each other apart millions of years ago, but they're held in perfect stasis." Elena studied the tactical display. Scattered throughout the system were the hulks of ships from a dozen different species. The massive Saurian dreadnought Eternal Glory drifted silently near the second planet, its hull intact but completely dark. Smaller vessels from the crystalline collective floated like crystal sculptures, beautiful but lifeless. "Arthur, scan for life signs," Elena ordered. "Detecting massive biological activity on all 17 ships, Captain. However, the readings are unusual. The life signs appear to be in some form of suspended animation or altered state." Commander Zhang pointed to the main screen. "Look at the planetary surfaces." Elena's breath caught in her throat. The planets weren't natural worlds at all. They were massive structures, each one designed like a museum exhibit. Through the enhanced sensors, she could see cities under transparent domes, entire civilizations preserved like insects in amber. The first planet showcased the Zephyrian homeworld, complete with their floating crystal spires. The second displayed crystalline architecture that bent light into impossible geometries. "It's a collection," Elena realized. "The entity isn't just capturing ships, it's preserving entire civilizations." A new voice joined their communications, this one speaking in the clicking language of the crystalline collective, which Arthur translated in real time. "Human vessel, this is Resonance Prime 7 of the Research Fleet Harmony. We have been conscious for 43 of your years. The Guardian allows us to maintain awareness so we can witness what we have become." "Guardian?" Elena asked. "The entity that dwells at the center of this system. It calls itself the Guardian of Peak Civilizations. It believes it is saving us from the tragedy of decline by preserving us at our moment of greatest achievement." Elena felt anger rising in her chest. "Saving you? You're prisoners." "We tried to resist," came another voice, this one from a Saurian commander. "I am War Master Crox of the Imperial Navy. My ship could level a moon with a single volley. My warriors had conquered 50 star systems. But our weapons cannot harm something that exists partially outside normal space-time." Dr. Chen was frantically scanning the system. "Captain, I'm detecting the source of the gravitational anomalies. There's something massive at the center of the system, but it's not showing up on visual sensors. Because it doesn't want to be seen yet." Thix's voice returned. "The Guardian reveals itself only when it's ready to judge. It will examine your species, determine if you have reached your peak, and then decide your fate." Elena made a decision that would have terrified any reasonable person. "Take us to the center of the system. If this Guardian wants to judge us, let's give it the chance." "Captain, this is highly inadvisable," Arthur protested. "Every species that has encountered this entity has been defeated." "Every species that came here thought they had already won," Elena replied. "They came here convinced they were the best their species could be. But humans know better. We know we're flawed, incomplete, still growing. Maybe that's our advantage. As the Defiance moved deeper into the system, space began to warp around them. Colors shifted from normal starlight to something that hurt to look at directly. The ship's hull groaned under stresses that shouldn't have existed. Hull integrity at 90%, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported. But it's not physical damage. It's like reality itself is pressing against us. Elena felt it too, a pressure in her mind as if something vast and ancient was examining her thoughts. Images flashed through her consciousness. Humanity's journey from Earth, their first tentative steps into space. The wars and mistakes and triumphs that had brought them to this moment. Then the Guardian appeared. It wasn't a ship or a creature in any sense they could understand. It was more like a living concept, a consciousness that existed in the spaces between atoms. When Elena tried to focus on it directly, her vision filled with geometric patterns that shifted and changed, always remaining just beyond comprehension. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere at once, reverberating through the ship's hull and directly into their minds. Another species seeks to cross the final frontier. Tell me, humans, what makes you believe you deserve to continue your expansion into the cosmos? Elena stood up from her command chair. Every instinct told her to run, to flee, to escape this cosmic predator. But she was human, and humans had spent their entire existence defying instinct when courage demanded it. We don't, she said simply. The Guardian's presence wavered, as if her answer had surprised it. Explain. We don't deserve to continue expanding. We've made terrible mistakes. We've fought wars over resources and ideology. We've polluted our own home world and nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. We're violent, irrational, and prone to making the same errors generation after generation. The alien voice pressed closer. Then why do you persist? Why do you reach for the stars when you acknowledge your unworthiness? Elena smiled, and in that smile was the essence of everything that made humanity unique in the galaxy. Because we know we can be better. Every mistake teaches us something. Every failure makes us stronger. We don't expand into space because we think we're perfect. We do it because we know we're not. And out here among the infinite possibilities of the universe, we might find ways to become something worth being. The silence stretched for long moments. Around them, the trapped consciousness of a dozen species waited to see if these newcomers would join their eternal museum, or if something unprecedented was about to occur in the depths of the Kepler 442 system. The Guardian's presence intensified, and Elena felt her consciousness pulled into a vast space that existed beyond the normal dimensions of reality. She found herself standing in what appeared to be an endless library, its shelves filled with glowing orbs that contained the essence of entire civilizations. You speak of improvement. The Guardian's voice echoed through the impossible architecture. Yet I have observed your species for the brief time you have existed. You wage wars over differences in belief. You destroy your environment for temporary gain. You allow some to suffer while others prosper beyond need. How do you reconcile this with your claims of growth? Elena felt the weight of every human failure pressing down on her, but she didn't flinch. Because we also have people who spend their lives healing the sick without reward. We have scientists who dedicate decades to solving problems they'll never live to see resolved. We have artists who create beauty for its own sake, and ordinary people who risk everything to save strangers. The Guardian materialized before her as a shifting geometric form that hurt to perceive directly. The Zephyrians achieved perfect harmony within their society. The Crystallines eliminated all forms of suffering through technological transcendence. The Saurians created an empire that brought order to chaos across hundreds of worlds. Each believed they had reached the pinnacle of what their species could become. What have humans achieved that surpasses these accomplishments? Nothing, Elena admitted without hesitation. We haven't achieved perfect harmony. We haven't eliminated suffering. We haven't conquered hundreds of worlds. But here's what those species missed. The goal isn't to reach perfection. The goal is to keep trying to reach it, knowing you never will. She gestured around the library of preserved civilizations. Every species you've collected stopped growing because they thought they had arrived. They became static, convinced they had solved all the important problems. But humans know that every solution creates new problems. Every answer leads to better questions. We're not trying to become perfect. We're trying to become worthy of the universe we're exploring. The Guardian's form shifted, becoming more agitated. You speak in abstractions. I will show you concrete reality. The library dissolved, and Elena found herself experiencing the memories of the trapped species. She felt the Zephyrian confidence as they achieved perfect societal balance, followed by the gradual stagnation as innovation ceased and their culture became frozen in self-satisfaction. She experienced the crystalline transcendence of physical limitations, and then the slow realization that without struggle, existence had become meaningless. She witnessed the Saurian military might conquering system after system, until they had nothing left to achieve and began to decay from within. You see, the Guardian said as the visions faded, perfection is death. Completion is extinction. These species reached their peaks and had nowhere else to climb. They came to this system seeking new frontiers, but they had already closed their minds to new possibilities. That is why I preserve them here, as monuments to the tragedy of fulfilled potential. Elena shook her head. But you're wrong about humans. We don't seek fulfillment. We seek purpose. There's a difference. Demonstrate this difference. Elena thought of her crew aboard the Defiance, probably terrified for her safety, but trusting her judgment. She thought of the billions of humans back on Earth and the colonies, each one carrying the same stubborn refusal to accept limitations that had carried their species from caves to stars. Humanity has faced extinction dozens of times in our short history. Climate disasters, nuclear weapons, plagues, resource depletion, even contact with more advanced alien species. Each time we adapted, not because we were perfect, but because we refused to give up. We don't fear failure. We fear stopping. The Guardian's presence pressed closer. Your ship's AI calculated a 0% chance of survival in this system. Your own analysis confirmed that every species more advanced than yours has failed. Yet you came anyway. This sounds like irrational pride, not wisdom. No, it's hope. There's a difference between pride and hope. Pride says we are the best. Hope says we can become better. Pride makes you protect what you have. Hope makes you risk everything for what you might become. Elena felt something shifting in the vast consciousness that surrounded her. For the first time since this encounter began, the Guardian seemed uncertain. The Altarians possessed hope when they arrived, the Guardian countered. The Metran Hive spoke of endless growth. The Vegan Confederacy claimed they sought only knowledge. I have heard these arguments before. But they all had one thing in common, Elena realized. They had already decided what success looked like. They came here to prove they were worthy of the final frontier. We came here to discover what the final frontier might teach us about becoming worthy. The library space began to fracture around them, reality bleeding through the cracks. Elena could sense the consciousness of the trapped species stirring, as if her words were reaching them across decades of captivity. Impossible, the Guardian whispered, but its voice carried doubt for the first time. Growth cannot be infinite. All systems reach equilibrium. All species find their limits. Elena smiled, and in that expression was the accumulated defiance of every human who had ever looked at the impossible and decided to try anyway. That's the beautiful thing about infinity, Guardian. There's always more to discover. Always another challenge to face. Always another way to fail, learn, and try again. You preserve civilizations at their peak, but humanity doesn't believe in peaks. We believe in the climb itself. The Guardian's form began to dissolve, and Elena felt herself being pulled back toward normal space. But as the alien presence faded, she heard something that sent chills through her soul. Then perhaps it is time for me to learn what lies beyond my own limitations. Elena found herself back on the bridge of the Defiance, her crew staring at her with concern. Outside the viewport, the impossible star system was beginning to change. The perfectly arranged planets were starting to move, breaking free from their eternal stasis. And from every ship in that cosmic graveyard, life signs were spiking as consciousness that had been dormant for decades suddenly blazed back to life. Across the Kepler 442 system, ships that had been dark for decades suddenly blazed with light. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels as crews that had been trapped in stasis for years awakened to find themselves free. Human vessel Defiance. This is War Master Crox. The Saurian commander's voice crackled with emotion. My weapon systems are responding. My crew is awake. What did you do? Elena looked around her bridge, still trying to process what had happened. I think we gave the Guardian something it had never encountered before. A species that doesn't want to stop growing. Dr. Chen was frantically analyzing her readings.
Captain, the gravitational anomalies are dissipating.
The artificial stasis fields holding the planets in place are collapsing. This entire system is returning to normal physical laws. Commander Zhang studied the tactical display. Multiple ships are reporting full power restoration. The Zephyrian vessel Whisper Wind is requesting permission to approach. Granted. Open a channel to all ships. Elena stood as dozens of faces appeared on her main screen. Reptilian saurians, ethereal Zephyrians, crystalline beings whose bodies refracted light into rainbow patterns, and representatives from a dozen other species she didn't recognize. I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth vessel Defiance. For those who don't know, we're the species that apparently convinced your guardian to let everyone go. Commander Thix of the Zephyrians spoke first, his translucent features showing wonder. Captain, my people achieved perfect societal harmony 3 centuries ago. We believed we had reached the apex of civilization, but in our perfection we became static. We stopped asking questions, stopped seeking challenges. The Guardian showed us this truth by trapping us here. Resonance Prime 7's crystalline form chimed with harmonic tones. We transcended physical limitations and thought ourselves complete. The Guardian preserved us as a warning to others about the danger of believing you have finished growing. War Master Crox's scarred face appeared stern but respectful. My empire conquered countless worlds through superior military might. We thought strength was the ultimate achievement. The Guardian taught us that true strength is admitting you still have weaknesses to overcome. Elena felt the weight of representing her entire species, but also the familiar human urge to rise to the challenge. What happened here doesn't diminish what your civilizations accomplished. You achieved incredible things, but maybe the greatest achievement isn't reaching a destination. It's having the courage to keep traveling even when you don't know where the road leads. A new voice joined the conversation, ancient and vast but somehow different from before. The Guardian was speaking, but its tone had changed from the omniscient judge they had first encountered to something that sounded almost humble. For eons beyond counting, I have preserved civilizations at their moment of greatest achievement. I believed I was saving them from the entropy that claims all systems, the decay that follows every peak. But perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps preservation itself is another form of decay. Elena felt compelled to respond. Guardian, you weren't entirely wrong. Those civilizations needed to be stopped, but not to preserve them. They needed to be challenged, made to question whether they had really achieved everything they thought they had. Yes, the Guardian replied. And now Elena could hear something like wonder in its voice. Your species showed me that growth is not a destination but a process. Not a state to be achieved but a choice to be made continuously. I have been static for longer than most stars have existed, convinced I had reached the ultimate wisdom. But you have shown me that wisdom itself must grow. Lieutenant Rodriguez called out from the navigation station. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy discharges from the center of the system. Something big is happening. On the main screen, space itself began to ripple as the Guardian's massive presence started to move for the first time in millennia. The ancient entity was leaving its position at the heart of the system, heading toward the galaxy beyond. Where are you going? Elena asked. To learn, the Guardian replied simply. To discover what lies beyond the limitations I imposed on myself. To find out if even an ancient consciousness can still grow. You have given me the greatest gift imaginable. Doubt about my own completeness. Dr. Chen looked up from her instruments in amazement. The system's returning to normal stellar mechanics. Planets are finding natural orbits. The preserved civilizations on the surface. They're waking up too. Elena realized the full magnitude of what was happening. The Guardian hadn't just been preserving ships. It had been maintaining entire worlds in stasis, keeping billions of beings frozen at what it considered their civilization's peak moments. Commander Zhang pointed to the screen showing the first planet. Captain, look at the Zephyrian homeworld. The stasis domes are dissolving. Their cities are coming back to life. Thix's image showed tears streaming down his translucent face. My people, they're free. After 87 years of preservation, they can continue to grow, to change, to become something new. Similar scenes were playing out across all the preserved worlds. Crystalline beings were emerging from their perfect structures, already beginning to ask new questions about their existence. Saurian warriors were laying down weapons of conquest to pick up tools of exploration. Civilizations that had been frozen in their moment of greatest achievement were suddenly free to discover what came next. Elena felt a deep sense of responsibility. All ships, this is Captain Vasquez. We need to coordinate our departure from this system and our return to our respective territories. But first I think we need to discuss what we've learned here. War Master Crocs nodded gravely. The Galaxy Congress must be informed. Every species will want to know that the Kepler 442 mystery has been solved. More than that, Elena replied. We need to share what the Guardian taught us about the danger of believing you've reached your final destination, about the importance of always being ready to grow beyond what you think you are. Resonance Prime 7's harmonics took on a thoughtful tone. Our species will need to adapt to this knowledge. Many of us have been content with our achievements. This experience suggests we should be questioning them instead. Elena looked around at the faces on her screen, representatives of civilizations far older and more advanced than humanity. But for the first time, they were looking at humans not as newcomers to galactic civilization, but as teachers who had reminded them of something crucial they had forgotten. Guardian, Elena called out as the ancient entity's presence began to fade into the cosmic distance. Will we see you again? The reply came faintly, already distant as the Guardian embarked on its own journey of growth. Perhaps, when you have taught me all you can, and when I have learned all I am able. Until then, remember, the final frontier is not a place you reach. It is the courage to keep crossing the frontiers you find within yourselves. And with that, the Guardian was gone, leaving behind a star system full of liberated civilizations and a small human ship that had accomplished something unprecedented in the galaxy, teaching an ancient cosmic entity that there was still room to grow. 3 weeks after the liberation of Kepler 442, the Defiance found itself at the center of the largest gathering in galactic history. Representatives from over 200 species had converged on the neutral space station Concordia Prime, all wanting to hear first-hand accounts of what had happened in the Forbidden System. Elena stood before the vast assembly, acutely aware that she was representing not just humanity, but a new way of thinking that had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. The amphitheater stretched out before her in concentric circles, each level hosting different species according to their environmental needs. Aquatic delegates floated in specialized tanks, while methane-breathing entities occupied pressurized chambers. Grand Chancellor Vextar of the Galactic Council, a towering crystalline being whose faceted surface reflected the chamber's lights, called the session to order. Captain Vasquez, the Council has reviewed the preliminary reports from all ships present in the Kepler 442 system. Your actions have freed 17 separate expeditions and awakened countless preserved civilizations. However, many of our members struggle to understand how a species as young as humanity succeeded, where ancient powers failed. Elena took a deep breath. She had practiced this moment during the journey to Concordia Prime, but standing before the accumulated wisdom of the galaxy was still overwhelming. Honorable delegates, I believe the key wasn't what humanity possessed, but what we lacked. A murmur of confusion rippled through the assembly. Ambassador Jeklon of the Altarian Republic, whose people had been trapped in the system for 43 years, leaned forward. Please elaborate, Captain. Every species that entered Kepler 442 did so from a position of strength and certainty. You had achieved great things and believed you understood your place in the universe, but humans entered that system carrying our failures with us, not just our successes. Elena activated the holographic display, showing images of Earth's history. We've poisoned our own atmosphere. We've fought wars over resources while our people starved. We've created weapons capable of destroying our world multiple times over. We've made countless mistakes, and we remember every one of them. War Master Crocs, now serving as the Saurian Empire's representative to the Emergency Council, spoke up. But surely these are weaknesses, not advantages. That's what makes us different, Elena replied. Most species see their failures as problems to be solved and forgotten. Humans see our failures as reminders that we haven't finished growing yet. We came to Kepler 442 not to prove we were worthy of the final frontier, but to discover what the frontier might teach us about becoming worthy. High Resonance Delthara of the Crystalline Collective chimed with harmonics that the translators rendered as curiosity. Our analysis suggests that the Guardian entity was specifically designed to identify and preserve civilizations at their peak achievement. How did your approach neutralize this mechanism? Elena smiled, feeling the weight of every human explorer who had ever pushed beyond safe boundaries. Because we convinced it that peak achievement is a myth. The Guardian preserved civilizations that had stopped growing, thinking they had reached their destination. But humans don't believe in final destinations. We believe in the journey itself. She gestured to the display, which now showed the awakening of the preserved worlds. Look what happened when the Guardian realized it could still grow after eons of stagnation. It didn't just free us. It freed itself. That's the power of admitting you don't know everything, that you haven't achieved everything, that there's always another mountain to climb. Chancellor Vextar's crystalline form shifted colors, indicating deep thought. You suggest that humility, not achievement, is the key to advancement? Not humility for its own sake, Elena clarified. Active humility. The humility that drives you to keep learning, keep growing, keep pushing beyond what you think your limits are. Every species in that system had convinced itself it had transcended its limitations. But humans know we haven't transcended ours. We've just learned to work with them while we figure out how to overcome them. Commander Thix, now speaking for the reunited Zephyrian Ascendancy, raised a translucent hand. Captain, your words challenge fundamental assumptions that many of our civilizations have held for millennia. If we accept that we have not reached our peaks, what does that mean for our societies? Elena felt the weight of the question. She was essentially asking the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy to reconsider everything they thought they knew about progress and achievement. It means you get to start growing again, she said simply. The Zephyrians achieved perfect harmony, but maybe there are forms of harmony you haven't discovered yet. The crystallines transcended physical limitations, but maybe there are limitations beyond the physical you haven't even identified. The Saurians built a great empire, but maybe there are better ways to bring order to chaos than conquest. The assembly fell silent. Elena could see representatives conferring among themselves, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of lights, sounds, and energy patterns. Ambassador Jeklon finally spoke. What you propose is that our greatest achievements might actually be our greatest obstacles to further growth. Not obstacles, Elena corrected. Foundations. Your achievements are incredible foundations to build on, but you can't build higher if you think the foundation is the finished structure. Every peak you reach should be a launching point to reach for the next one, not a place to stop and admire the view. A new voice entered the discussion, speaking from the section reserved for recently awakened civilizations. It was Prime Collective Node 7 of the Metron Hive, a species that had been preserved in Kepler 442 for over a century. The human speaks truth that burns like acid in our collective consciousness, the node said, its mental emanations translated into galactic standard. Our hive achieved perfect efficiency, perfect coordination, perfect unity of purpose. We thought we had solved the equation of existence, but in our perfection we became static. We stopped asking questions because we thought we had all the answers. Elena nodded respectfully. And now? Now we realize that the questions themselves were evolving while we stood still. The universe kept growing while we declared ourselves complete. We have much to learn about learning itself. Chancellor Vexatar rose to his full impressive height. Captain Vasquez, the Council must deliberate on the implications of these revelations. Your species has challenged not just our understanding of the Kepler 442 phenomenon, but our understanding of advancement itself. This will require careful consideration. Elena bowed to the assembly. Honorable delegates, I want to make something clear. Humanity didn't come here to teach anyone anything. We came to explore, to grow, to become more than we were. The fact that our approach worked in Kepler 442 doesn't make us superior. It just makes us different. Every species here has strengths we lack and wisdom we need. She paused, looking around at the incredible diversity of life forms that filled the chamber. What we learned in that system wasn't that humans are special. We learned that growth itself is special, that the willingness to admit you haven't finished becoming who you're supposed to be is the most powerful force in the universe, and that's a lesson any species can learn, no matter how advanced they think they are. As the session ended and delegates began to file out, Elena couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had been shaken from its complacency, reminded that the journey of growth never truly ends. The real question now was what all these civilizations would choose to do with their newfound understanding. The final frontier, Elena realized, wasn't a place at all. It was the decision to keep exploring the infinite possibilities of what you could become. 5 years had passed since the Kepler 442 incident, and the galaxy was transforming in ways no one could have predicted. Elena, now promoted to admiral, stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed frontier station, watching ships from dozens of species arrive for the first Galactic Growth Summit. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built by civilizations that had once considered themselves complete. Zephyrian harmony engineering ensured perfect balance. Crystalline energy manipulation provided unlimited power, and Saurian military precision had organized the massive construction project. But it was human innovation that had proposed the most radical feature. The station was designed to be continuously rebuilt, never to be considered finished. Commander Zhang, now Elena's chief of staff, approached with a data pad. Admiral, the preliminary reports from the exploration missions are fascinating. Every species that has embraced the continuous growth philosophy is making discoveries they never thought possible. Elena smiled, remembering her old friend from their time on the Defiance. Give me the highlights. The Zephyrians have discovered 17 new forms of societal harmony, each more complex than their original perfect system. They're calling it infinite harmony theory. The crystallines have transcended their transcendence, if that makes sense. They've found dimensions of existence beyond physical limitations that they didn't even know existed. Zhang paused, his expression showing wonder. But the most remarkable change is in the Saurian Empire. War Master Crox has completely revolutionized their military doctrine. Instead of conquering territories, they now conquer problems. Their fleets travel the galaxy looking for challenges to overcome, disasters to prevent, and civilizations that need protection. They've become the galaxy's crisis response force. Elena felt a warm satisfaction. And the Guardian? Any word from our cosmic teacher? Long-range deep space sensors detected a massive energy signature near the galactic core last month. The pattern matches the Guardian's, but it's different, larger, more complex, as if it's been growing too. Dr. Chen's voice came over the comm system. Admiral, you'll want to see this. We're receiving a transmission from the Outer Rim, Sector 442 Alpha. Elena's heart skipped. That was the sector beyond Kepler 442, where the Guardian had headed 5 years ago. Put it through. The main communication screen activated, showing not the geometric impossibility they remembered, but something new. The Guardian had changed, evolved into something that retained its vast consciousness but seemed somehow more accessible, more understandable to mortal minds. Greetings, Admiral Vasquez. Greetings to all who can hear this transmission. I am the entity you once knew as the Guardian, though I have become something new in the years since our encounter. Elena stepped forward. Guardian, it's good to hear from you. We've been wondering how your journey of growth was progressing. Beyond my wildest calculations, the Guardian replied, and Elena could swear she heard joy in its voice. In these 5 years, I have discovered more about existence than in the previous million. I have learned from species beyond this galaxy, encountered forms of consciousness I never imagined, and faced challenges that forced me to grow beyond what I believed were my fundamental limitations. The gathered delegates on the station stopped their conversations to listen. Representatives from over 300 species now called Frontier Station home, all committed to the philosophy of continuous growth that had emerged from the Kepler 442 incident. But more importantly, the Guardian continued, I have encountered others like myself, ancient entities that had fallen into the same trap I had, believing they had reached the apex of development. Your species' lesson about infinite growth has spread far beyond this galaxy, Admiral. You have started a revolution in consciousness itself. Elena felt the weight of unintended consequences. Guardian, we never meant to change the universe. We were just trying to survive and learn. And that, the Guardian replied, is precisely why your lesson was so powerful. You were not trying to teach. You were simply being authentic to your nature as a species that refuses to accept limitations as permanent. That authenticity resonated across dimensions. Chancellor Vextar, now serving as the first director of Galactic Continuous Development, spoke up. Guardian, many of our civilizations are struggling with the implications of infinite growth. Some fear that if we never reach completion, our efforts are meaningless. A fear I understand intimately, the Guardian responded. But consider this. In a universe of infinite possibilities, the meaning is not in reaching the destination. The meaning is in the choice to continue the journey, knowing it will never end. The value is not in becoming perfect, but in becoming more than you were yesterday. Elena looked around at the assembled species. Some were excited by the possibilities, others seemed overwhelmed. She recognized the feeling from humanity's own history of facing the vastness of space. Guardian, what happens now? Where does this lead us? To questions we haven't learned to ask yet. To challenges we haven't imagined. To growth we can't currently comprehend. But here is what I have learned that I want to share with all of you. The universe itself is growing, changing, becoming more complex with each passing moment. We are not just exploring a static cosmos, we are participating in its evolution. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. You're saying the universe itself is not complete? Exactly. Reality itself is in a constant state of becoming. Stars are born and die, galaxies collide and merge. New forms of matter and energy emerge from quantum foam. We are not separate from this cosmic growth. We are expressions of it. Every civilization that chooses to continue growing contributes to the universe's own evolution. Elena felt tears forming in her eyes as the full scope of what they had started became clear. They had not just saved trapped civilizations or taught an ancient entity to grow. They had discovered that growth itself was the fundamental nature of existence. So what's next for humanity? She asked. What's next for all of us? The Guardian replied. To keep growing, keep learning, keep pushing beyond what we think our limits are. To embrace the terrifying beauty of infinite potential. To remember that every peak we reach is just another starting point. The communication began to fade as the Guardian prepared to continue its journey. Admiral Vasquez, your species gave me the greatest gift possible. The realization that I was not finished becoming who I could be. Now I pass that gift to the galaxy. Grow well, all of you. The universe is counting on it. As the transmission ended, Elena looked around at the species gathered on Frontier Station. Zephyrians, Crystallines, Saurians, Altarians, Metrons, and dozens of others, all united by a new understanding of what it meant to be alive in an evolving cosmos. Commander Zhang approached her. Admiral, what are your orders? Helena smiled, feeling the familiar human urge to push beyond safe boundaries, to explore the impossible, to grow into something more than what they were. Set course for the unknown, Commander. All of it. As Frontier Station oriented itself toward the galactic rim where countless mysteries waited to be explored, Elena realized that humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not conquered the final frontier. They had discovered that there was no such thing as a final frontier. There was only the endless, exhilarating, terrifying privilege of conscious beings choosing to grow into their infinite potential, one step at a time, forever. The real journey was just beginning.